Welcome to Warfighter Advanced, Coming Home at Last, a podcast by and for veterans. Warfighter Advance is an organization whose mission is the successful reintegration of every warfighter. Hi, I'm Michael Arndt, a Vietnam combat veteran and a member of the Board of Directors for Warfighter Advance. Welcome to the Warfighter Advance podcast, Coming Home at Last. Our guest today is Manny Leal. Manny is an alumnus of the Warfighter program and also serves currently as a mentor. Welcome, Manny.
Thank you.
Manny, begin by talking about your service and your military experience and deployments.
Well, I enlisted in the United States Naval Reserves in February of 2001. I'm a religious program specialist, which is my rate, my job, my MOS. And I deployed 6 times, 4 of which were in theater.
In those deployments, talk about your experiences, especially those experiences that sort of affected you through the rest of your life.
Yeah, I've seen many things on my deployments on those 4 tours, even working on active duty in Camp Lejeune and in Camp Pendleton, working with families and service members as a religious program specialist assisting the chaplain. But what I experienced the most was when I was deployed overseas in theater in Iraq. I did 2 deployments in Iraq. One little bit of that deployment was in Afghanistan, and then I served with the 24th Marine Expeditionary Unit in 2010. We went to Haiti. So the experience that I seen was, what war does to society, especially in Iraq. All of my deployments overseas were impactful, but the first one is the marking point. When you first experience combat was in 2004, 2005.
Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah,
experience?
it was first deployment in theater, and I was deployed with Marine Wing Service Support Group 417. It was a reserve unit out of Pennsylvania. And we were stood up and we were stationed in Al-Assad Air Base in Iraq. And what was interesting about that deployment, it was 2004, and it was towards the end of summer when we got there, and which led us into the retaking of Fallujah in just October, November time period. And then we also had the elections, the first elections in Iraq since Saddam Hussein was the dictator there. And that was really eye-opening and scary, needless to say. But to see and witness people for the first time get to vote and really cherish that opportunity to vote for their leader was a privilege, and it was very impactful. But personally, what affected me the most was the loss of my friend, Staff Sergeant Jason Ladle, who was laid to rest in Arlington Cemetery.
So what happened to the sergeant?
He was a Marine, EOD, Explosive Ordnance Disposal. And so on December 28th of 2004, he was conducting a type of training to learn how to disarm an ejection seat. And in the process of doing that, his life was taken. And it was in the compound of where we were, where MWS's 472 was stationed on top of the flight line in Al-Assad. I had witnessed his death. Also with the chaplain, we assisting the survivor. Was a sergeant who was aiding him, helping him. And the impact of watching him die was quick, but we had to attend to the living and administer aid on top of that, spiritual assistance. So,
how did that experience affect you after you left the service?
As a reservist, you get called to active duty, more than likely you're going to be deployed into theater. So you do your year deployment if it is a full year, and then you get automatically, you probably have a period of a couple of weeks to reintegrate into society before you get back home. So for me, after 2005 or 2004-2005 deployment in Iraq with the MWS 472, I got home. It was a struggle to adjust. You think that there's going to be a big debriefing and time to reintegrate while you're still on active duty, but that's not the case for reservists and even for active duty service members. For me, when I got back home, my civilian job was a correctional officer. So in a period of being back home for 6 months, I was looking for another deployment. And the adjustment to back home was not even in the work environment. It was more of reintegrating into the house. While I was away, and like many married couples, whichever spouse is deployed, the spouse at home is the one that's doing both jobs, as either if they have children, for both father and mother. So for me, when I got back home, my wife, she pretty much did all the work for both of us with our kids, and we have 3 kids. And so that was hard to reintegrate. What was difficult was not trying to take control back of my position. We were told, when you get home, be patient, just kind of ease into time. Time will help you ease back into your role for me, it was as the father and as a husband. So what I mean by that is, let your spouse, it was hard for me to let my spouse give me it's okay to take this responsibility back, and where I just took it. And so that was the problem.
What ultimately led you to Warfighter Advance?
Well, in July of 2011, I was discharged from the Navy, and I was discharged because I popped for cocaine use. At the time, this was my 6th deployment. I was on active duty for 2 years. I was LPO for a 2nd MHG, assisting the chaplain in Camp Lejeune. And 2nd MHG is Marine Headquarters Support Group. I took orders to go to the 24th Marine Expeditionary Unit, which were gone for a year. That was my last deployment. I was able to serve in Haiti for the 2010 earthquake, and received a humanitarian medal for that deployment. And upon, towards the end of that orders, I called my detailer and asked for more orders because I didn't want to go back home. After going back home several times and struggled, I just requested orders, and I got orders to Wounded Warrior Battalion out of Camp Pendleton. And there, I was working with Wounded Warriors. Never saw myself as a Wounded Warrior, but I was. And in doing so, one thing led after another. I was at a party full of Marines and sailors, and while being there, we're celebrating, drinking, telling war stories, and before you know it, cocaine was introduced, and I chose to take it. And in doing so, needless to say, on Monday there was a urinalysis, and I was the one that popped. And because of it, I fought. I went to a board, and I still received honorable discharge, but I felt no honor, even though I received the honor of being discharged honorably. I didn't feel that way. So, needless to say, I went to civilian life, no longer in the Navy, Naval Reserves. Went to college, but I found myself consuming a lot of alcohol and feeding the addiction of drugs as well. 2023, so last year in May 2023, prior to May, I was invited to come to Warfighter Advance by 2 chief petty officers who, when I enlisted, they were also 3rd classes at the time, Michael Norgren and David Ihus, who helped establish Warfighter Advance with Dr. Viton. They never forgot about me. They knew my situation, but they didn't know that I got out honorably, and they didn't know the extent of how far I went down in my alcoholism. But I eventually made it to Warfighter Advance. Several invitations from them. I had canceled twice before, and on the third invitation, I made it here in May of 2023. Getting here, I was in really bad shape, much thinner than I am now. What changed for me is getting the information from Warfighter Advance in regards to psychiatric drugs and alcoholism and drug abuse. And I learned a lot about people's sacred stories. And in being here and hearing others who facilitators who are also veterans sharing their sacred stories, several of those stories, but three in particular. One was Jim Kriegler, who is a Vietnam veteran, Huey Helicopters, shared his sacred story, which impacted me. And then a gentleman, Chief Polis, who also shared his sacred story, impacted me. And then Lieutenant Commander Rewis, who shared his sacred story, impacted me. And it led me to ask for help for my alcoholism and drug abuse. Being here at Warfighter, I don't think it was intended for me to happen, but I hit rock bottom here. And one of the things from the 12 steps in AA is that one has to, surrender himself to their addictions. And for me, that would happen. And so I met my first step here at Warfighter Advance. And then being here, I was able to pay respects to my friend Jason Ladle because of Warfighter Advance. I live in Arizona. I knew that Jason was buried in Arlington, and I struggled to pay my respects to him out of fear. And it's a big long ways to go to get to DC to Arlington. But not knowing that was going to be one of our days here in Warfighters is to visit Arlington. I remember going there and told that we're going to be going to Arlington, and if you know anybody that is buried there, please let us know. And that was probably one of the most scariest times in my life. I don't know if you ever seen the movie Saving Private Ryan, but I never thought that I would feel like that old man when he was walking in Normandy and he went to go pay respects to his buddies after so many years from being away from World War II. But there I was, and I'll never forget the support, the brotherhood around me. Even though it impacted me, it was a very emotional day at Arlington. But they took photos, and after I got back home and I started to see these photos of me paying respects to Jason, I noticed that I had hands touching me, which I didn't remember feeling, but there was brothers around me had their hands on me, and I realized I am not alone. And I also realized that there were many people like myself who are veterans and have their own personal stories that they struggle with. And like yourself, Michael, I've heard you tell your story. One of the things you said is that the thing that frees us is to be able to tell our story. And it doesn't hold any power over us as many times we get to tell it. And over a year of being here at Warfighter, I've been able to share my sacred story so that others could benefit from it like I benefited from those who shared their story before me.
And now you come back, evolution after evolution, as a mentor. Tell me about that experience and what it means to you and what it means to the other warfighters.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things that the reason why I enlisted was that I always had this calling in my heart to be a part of something greater than myself. And there's a model that you learn when you go to boot camp. I went to boot camp in Great Lakes, and I'll never forget it. We were told by our RDCs that you represent those that have gone before you and those that will come after you. And coming to Warfighter Advance and being asked to come back as a mentor, I totally lean on that model. Every time I come back to Warfighter as a mentor, I grow alongside those that are growing. I still grow every day. And it's one of the things that I come to respect and cherish about Warfighter Advance is that the desire to grow. Before, I had no desire to grow or to move away from the trauma that I experienced, because I felt that if I moved away from it, I would be dishonoring the memories of those that were lost in service. But I felt guilty that I was going to remember. But I have not forgotten them, because of others who have gone before me here at Warfighter and have shared their story. I have not forgotten them. I still hold Jason close to my heart, but it's held differently than it was yesterday. I honor him by coming to Warfighter Advance and helping those that live, and I honor those that have gone before us and that are buried at Arlington and are buried in their prospective graves at home, by coming here and helping those that live.
Well, thank you, Manny, for sharing your story with us and the listeners and watchers out there, and thank you for your service to Warfighter Advance.
Thank you too, Michael, for your service.
Welcome to another segment we call A Mindful Minute with a Mentor on the Warfighter Advance podcast, Coming Home at Last. Joining me today is Darrel Rewis, a chaplain who's been working with Warfighter for many years. So welcome.
Yeah, thank you. It's good to be here.
Talk to us a little bit about both your military experience and your chaplain experience.
Yeah, so I've been a reserve Navy chaplain I'm in my 13th year. And all along that time, I've been a pastor on the civilian side. I've been a pastor full-time on the civilian side for 25 years now. And so, man, I'm getting old, brother. I'm getting old. Yeah, and currently, this is what I call my trifecta tour. I am the Reserve Deputy Chaplain for Coast Guard District 7, which covers basically all of the Southeast and Puerto Rico, and really enjoying that. I call it my trifecta tour because as a Navy chaplain, we get to serve in Navy, Marine Corps, and Coast Guard units. Kind of a rare opportunity to get to wear all three uniforms, and I really, really enjoy that. It's been good. Yeah.
Talk to us about the importance of a chaplain for the warfighter evolution and for warfighters in general.
Sure. I remember early on, after getting to know Doc V, one of the first things she said to me was, our participants expect a chaplain to be with us wherever we go, just like when they were serving. And we've got to have a chaplain in every evolution. And I thought that was a really wise and important thing to do. And in fact, first time I met her was at a chaplain's training conference, an annual training conference, where she was basically putting out the message, chaplains, we need you as much as we need the doc, we need the chaplains. We need you to take ownership of that and do your job. And please don't just send them down the hall past your office to my office. There's important work for the chaplain to do that doc isn't equipped to do in the same way. And, there's this gray area, this mystical area, this mysterious, spiritual, religious area that Doc V likes to joke with me about, that chaplains need to deal with, and that her office doesn't really need to deal with. And so that's become a part of Warfighter Advance from the very start, that we make sure we have chaplains involved, alongside with what she does to inform on the science and the medical stuff. As a subject matter expert there, she wants to make sure we have maybe a subject matter expert of the heart, of that dark, mysterious place where a lot of the things that our warfighters are dealing with falls into.
Well, thank you for talking to us today, and thank you for your contributions to Warfighter Advance.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. This has been another Mindful Minute with a Mentor on the Warfighter Advance podcast, Coming Home at Last. Thank you for joining us for the Warfighter Advance Coming Home at Last podcast. Warfighter Advance envisions a world where warfighters are fully restored through a non-medical process. To achieve that vision, Warfighter Advance sponsors 6 7-day training sessions each year to which veterans and active duty service members can apply, and for no cost to the warfighter. If you or those you know are struggling with issues related to reintegration, please contact us through our website. We are dedicated to lead the way so that every warfighter has the information, tools, and support they need to successfully reintegrate. Until next time, this is Michael Arndt on behalf of Warfighter Advance.